tonality is 90% of your effectiveness on cold calls, yet most SDRs use the complete wrong tone when cold calling, and you could have the perfect script in place and do everything right, but if you don't have the right tone, you are not gonna get the results that you want. So in this video, I'm gonna share the tone that you need to be using in the most common areas it comes into play so that you're aware of it. So let's get into it. So I'll cut to the chase. The tone you need to have is an assumptive tone, usually accompanied by a downward inflection where you're speaking matter-of-factly. Most SDRs, because they're new, subconsciously use an upward inflecting tone. I totally did this when I was new, and this signals to the prospect that you're not even confident in what you're proposing here. So if you're asking for a meeting on someone's calendar and you have an upward inflecting tone, it makes it really easy for them to say no. A lot of people will argue that the downward inflecting tone is old school, but from my experience, this is an old school technique that still works, but is not commonly used. A lot of people think they're using a downward inflecting tone when they're not using a downward inflecting tone at all. Most people still have an upward inflecting tone and use passive language, which I'll touch on in a second, and they'll do anything under the sun, all the psychological gymnastics they need to do to avoid using an assumptive tone because it feels uncomfortable for a lot of people when they first start doing it. But I can speak from my experience of 2 years as an SDR manager where I coached hundreds of reps and oversaw countless cold calls. This was the quickest fix to getting immediate results. And I'm not just talking slightly better results, I'm talking they didn't change anything about their cold call script, and just by fixing this tonality issue, their results were 2 to 3x. I found instances where people didn't feel comfortable cold calling, and this was the last piece of the puzzle that made them feel confident cold calling and got them excited about picking up the phone. This was the missing piece that they needed to become effective on the phone. And when we talk about tonality, I'm also talking about the language that accompanies that tonality. There's assumptive language and there's passive language. So passive language could sound something like, "Do you possibly have time next week?" Or, "If you're interested, I was hoping to set up some time next week." Your script could have been perfect, but if you finish with something like that, it makes it really easy. Again, that path of least resistance is for the prospect to say, you know what, you can just shoot me an email and I'll get back to you. But if you replace it with assumptive language like, "Great, I'm looking to set up some time next week just to get introduced and aligned going forward," or, "Let's set up some time next week. How does your calendar look on Wednesday or Thursday?" The rest of the script could have been entirely the same, but just by making that tweak, you are going to get more people that say yes to you. And the two most common areas this come into play are one, at your cold call opening, and then two, the more important one, when you're asking for time on their calendar, like the example I just gave, or if you're an AE, when you're asking for next steps. So a downward inflecting cold call opening would sound something like, "Hey Jem, this is Connor Murray calling from X company. Have you been?" Versus, "Hey Jem, this is Connor Murray calling from X company. Have you been?" The words were the exact same, but the impression is totally different. The first one is signaling that you're not here to waste their time. They just need to give you a quick formality back and then you're gonna take control. The second one is likely gonna raise the prospect's eyebrows because you're signaling that you might be here a while. You might be looking at chit chat and they're like, "I don't have this person's number. Who are you? I'm busy right now." The second common area that I just gave a couple examples of earlier is when you ask for time on their calendar. I'm telling you, this is the #1 quickest way to improve your results as an SDR. Yes, you need to have your script in place. Let's assume you have a good value statement or a good script in place. And now it comes time to ask for the meeting. A lot of SDRs shoot themselves in the foot. I did this when I was new too, by ending it with, "I was hoping to set up some time next week," or, "If you're interested, I'd love to set up some time and act as a resource to you." And it just makes it really easy for the prospect to just push you away and say, "No, I'm good." You don't sound very convicted in your next step. And why should this person spend more time with you if you don't even sound like you believe in the next step here? Just by making that tweak from, "I was hoping to set up some time," to, "Let's set up some time next week," or, "I'm looking to set up some time next week." It changes that path of least resistance. Now it's harder for them to say no. It's easier for them to say yes. They would have to break your assumption and give you an objection in order to say no. So I'm not asking you to slay the dragon here. Try making this one change and see how it feels on the cold calls. Let me know how it goes. If this helped, hit the like button and I'll see you on the next one.